Hello and welcome to the Launch It in the Making course. My name is Nicole M. Louie and I am the Social Worker Strategy Mentor. I've created this course for you so that you can discover your journey forward in independence and never have to look back. I am so excited to deliver this course to you. I've taken a lot of time to pull it together and I've created it primarily to dispel the myths that are going around about what independent social work is, how it's done, and really to highlight how these myths are actually hindering the industry and you from being able to move forward. And I'm going to show you specifically where and how social workers are going wrong in setting up their business so that you can avoid making the same mistakes. And I'm going to give you a very crystal clear blueprint of how you should set up your business with evidence of how it's working, not just for me, but for other social workers out there that are just like you. And that way you can build your confidence and belief that you can do it too. So in order to get the best out of this course, there's some things that you're going to need to do. First and foremost, I'm going to encourage you to find a quiet space where there are no interruptions. Why? So that you have got the headspace to really engage and dive in and digest the content and think about your ideas that you're going to be coming with about what independence looks like for you. And I want you to be enthusiastic about those ideas, the thought of being independent, if that is indeed what you would like. And as we go forward together, you're going to discover some of the ideas may need to be tweaked or abandoned, or go forward with them, but come with enthusiasm and ensure that you've got water with you already so that you don't have to get up and leave or pause or for anything like that, so you don't get distracted or waylaid on another activity. And finally, have a notebook, a workbook, and a pen. If you're somebody who likes taking notes digitally, then that's fine. But just make sure you've got things like your mobile phone or your iPad set to do not disturb, and so that your notifications are not popping up. That's going to be important so that you are all in, so that you're not distracted and you are focused to do this work, okay? Now, even when you do these things, there are going to be ways in which you can get derailed. And these things are your zappers, and overthinking is definitely one of those zappers. If you come with predisposed ideas and fixed ideas about what independence looks like and what it should be, then that may be a struggle as you move forward. Because I'm going to be showing you things and explaining things that really highlight a difference in how you've probably been thinking about it. So I don't want you coming in overthinking things, okay? You may have your ideas, but be open and willing to have those challenged, and be open and willing to think about new ways of doing things, because that's going to benefit you in the long run. And don't compare yourself to anyone else. You might be thinking about your age, or how long you've been in the industry, or how many times you've actually attempted, or how long you've been attempting to be fully independent. And you might be comparing yourself to other people. I don't want you to do that. You're on your journey and nothing happens before it's time. And so you're in the right place at the right time. And now's the opportunity for you to move forward. The other thing that I will say to you in terms of how you keep your notes, keep them really organized. If you're anything like me, I love a good notepad and pen with highlighters, and I use headings that are color coordinated. I do the most. And I do that because when I go back to it, I can understand what I've written. I can know exactly what I was talking about. It brings me right back into being in that moment. By what I've written and how I've written it. And I'm also a visual thinker. So if you're like me, then that might be a good way for you to do it too. But make sure that they are really clear in a way that speaks to you, so that when you go back to it, you're not overwhelmed, because that will definitely keep you stuck and kind of stop you from moving forward with what you're about to learn. Okay. And then finally, pessimism, leave it at the door. So I don't want you thinking independence is just not for me. I've seen people do it. They've fallen off. That's going to happen to me. No, 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 no. You are a different person. You're even a new person from who you were yesterday. And so I want you to go in with optimism. I want you to come on this course thinking positively about what you're able to do with new knowledge. Okay, so you may be here and have decided to click on to learn about independence because you're currently unhappy in your job and you really want to change. You might be feeling very led to just do something different that's more aligned with your purpose. You might have had a personal experience that has changed your whole outlook on life and you feel that you want more. There's more on your horizon. There are different things that you want to do, that you've heard about, that you'd like to try, whatever it is. You might even have tried your hand at independence, but you're not quite sure how to figure it out fully and you're a bit stuck, or you're not sure how to move forward, or you're scared to move forward, but you've got these ideas, tucked away, that you haven't really spoken to anyone about. And you may be worried that you don't have enough business acumen. So again, if you're somebody who has actually tried it, but you just haven't got over the precipice to be fully independent, or you're kind of in semi-independent status, but you're kind of snookered and you don't want to go back to full-time local authority, but you can't go forward because the money just isn't adding up for you. Whatever it is, you're in the right place right now. And so I want you to come with bags of enthusiasm, lots of energy, and your ideas about what you want to do. And if you have no ideas, that's okay as well. Okay, you don't have to come with it figured out. In fact, 99% of social workers that come to me don't have a clue. Some of them have not even heard of independent social work. So you are in the right place at the right time. Okay, now, if you have seen me in social media or you're in my launch community, you know that I love giving gifts. You know that I love, love, love rewarding people for, showing up for themselves and trying. And so if you stay until the end and you stay focused in this course, and I will know if you have, because this is going to be interactive. And so, as you move forward and as you stay until the end, I'm going to gift you with the Get Your Mojo Back 10-day challenge. This was a 10-day challenge that I did, and it was really for people who have had their confidence knocked, either because they're in local authority or working for somebody else and they just feel de-skilled and they're at a bit of a, hit a plateau in their life, or just feeling deflated. They might be experiencing depression, burnout, and they want to change, but they don't know how. They're feeling quite stuck right now, whether it's in their career or even other relationships, like their health is a mess and they need to get sorted mentally, physically, emotionally. All of those things are encompassed within this 10-day challenge. And I'm going to gift you the first 4 days for free. And it will include practical solutions that you can implement immediately. So if you stay to the end, you will get that directly in your inbox, okay? So I'm really excited about that because I enjoyed doing that challenge. It was a real marathon, but myself and the participants got so much out of it. So I encourage you to stay till the end so you can get that too. Now, let me tell you a little bit about me, because you might be new to me, completely new to me. And if you're not, then you're going to still hear some things that are new that you probably have not heard before. So the picture on the left is me when I was a student social worker. I was employment based. So I was, supported through the employer to go through the social work degree. And I was about 25 at that time. I started off in frontline child protection, and that's predominantly what I've done within my career, because that's the area that I love, children and families. And, I did that for more than 10, 15 years and worked in 12 local authorities across the UK. But in this picture, I can remember very, very vividly that day. It was after hours, well and truly after hours. My friend and I were working late, as usual, and she was leaving, so I got her to take a picture of me because I was actually, as you can see with a case file, writing up this case file because I was preparing to go on holiday. So the following day, I think I was flying, and I was going for 6 weeks to Trinidad, and those days we had paper files, so things were not electronic. And I had this looked after child, that's what denotes a red file. And I was updating the case to let people know a brief profile of the family, of the young person in question, what the risks were, what were the issues that were likely to come up while I was away, how they needed to address it, and who were the professionals that were involved aside from me and with their contact number. And I can tell you there were so many files because I had quite a number of looked after children. We have a file for each child. So I had to write the same thing multiple times. And I can remember my arm was so sore. I worked so late. I think I had to actually leave and I had to lock up because I left that late. It was like after 10 or 11 p.m. And this was a feature of my career moving forward. And bear in mind, at that stage, I was just a social worker that was a student. So I wasn't even fully fledged at that point, if you like. And so, but that kind of working lifestyle was something that started off very early on in my career and continued. And it was just a lot of late nights. It was a lot of rushing around. There was a lot of eating on the go, skipping meals, missing meals, early mornings, late nights, not a lot of work-life balance, if any at all. My life was going to church, it was going to work, and that was really it. There was little time for hobbies. I did salsa here and there, but was not as consistent as I would have liked. There were just other hobbies that I didn't take up, that I didn't do because work was all consuming, right? And so, yeah, me sitting at that desk was just a feature. And at that time, I was experiencing, different symptoms. I was definitely fatigued. I was definitely sometimes struggling with not feeling on top of things. But because I was a student, I was very enthusiastic. I was very eager to learn, and I pushed myself. I always do that. When I do something, I give 1,000,000%. And so my career was no different. And again, as I moved forward in my career, that did continue, but the symptoms increased and continued also, of fatigue and feeling tired, and some days not feeling my best, but pushing myself anyway, neglecting to look after my health. There were times where, sometimes I'd go near a whole day without eating because I just did not have the time, and feeling stress, feeling the anxiety of not having things, up to date. When I started to develop habits of how I can put in systems and structures that were actually helping me to better manage that and stay on top of it, that then felt great. But as if and you've worked in children and families, you'd know that actually something will come along and there'd be this crisis and it will throw everything out the window that I had just managed to get on top of. So it took a while to learn that this was kind of a revolving door and that's just how it was going to be. But I was able, for the most part, to stay on top of things. But that did not abate the other areas in which I was struggling. And so this kind of continued, and it meant that I got to a place when I was about 35 where I felt I can't do this anymore. I didn't want to get to 40 and things were still the same. So I started walking. I basically decided there and then I wasn't going to do this anymore. And I basically, ended the contract where I was in the local authority, and I became independent. I think it was a week later. And I negotiated my first contract with a college to deliver a program that I put together and created from conception, and I did that from a beach. So I needed a break. I went abroad, and yeah, I had no business acumen. I did not know what on earth I was doing. I didn't even give it much thought as to what I was going to do or how I was going to do it. The only vision I had was that I wanted independence to look different. I wanted to be working for different people on any given day or with different people and doing different things with them. And I knew that I wanted to create something that was very different. So my services were always going to be bespoke and out of the box. And that's what I did. So the picture on the right is me when I'm independent. Me as an independent social worker doing just that, providing different programs. I've worked with companies where as a director consultant, learning business, and where I've been able to help people in other industries know how to use a marketing tool that would drive business for them. I have worked with quite a number of high profile people within the UK, from footballers to CEOs of very well known food chains in the UK, as private clients, providing them very bespoke services. And so being independent has just helped me and has given me so much that it has allowed me to use all my skills, my knowledge, my practice, and turn it into something that was very creative and doing something that really served people. And because of that, my belief is that social workers deserve to have the access to the resources that they need to live purposefully, and that includes whether personally or professionally. So with your finances, your career development, and you having support, I also feel social workers should be able to help others and have the help to do that so that they can make a greater impact without compromising their overall health, dignity, or family life. And I'm really focused on creating a movement that is showing social workers, just like you and others, that there is another way to do independence, and that does not have to involve report writing, doing assessments, tendering, working for the government, or having grants and funding, relying on reports and assessments to be able to stay afloat, never mind scale, right? And so independence has really gifted me two life altering things that I would never have gained if I continued working for the local authority. Now, the first thing it's gifted me is growth, both personally but professionally too. And that's because I have had opportunities to learn business acumen, and that has grown me as an individual so that my career could grow. And I continue to learn and develop all the time. And that's why I'm a member of so many different bodies. So bodies such as the International and European Association of the School of Social Workers, and the International Federation of Social Workers, and even the Institute of Directors. I make sure that I keep my memberships up so that I'm continually touching base and learning from these amazing bodies. And this kind of growth has led to me having opportunities where I have been featured in business and industry publications and podcasts. I've even been invited to speak to social work students in universities abroad, but also at national business events. And I've also been able to have opportunities to deliver bespoke social work programs to be able to help health and social care students enter the industry. And so those things have been amazing experiences, and they continue. My horizon is broadening all the time. But the greatest life altering thing that independence has gifted me is space. It has given me space. On the 17th of March 2019, I was diagnosed with cancer of the thyroid and hypothyroidism. Now, on the day that I was diagnosed, I was optimistic about, my recovery. I was optimistic about life and how God was using this to not just draw me closer to Him and help others, but how it was helping me to learn personally and grow in terms of understanding my body and how to live a more natural lifestyle. But by day two, it had really sunken in, and I was tearful, I was a bit of a mess, and I just felt overwhelmed with the fact that as somebody who is single, I was going to have to fight cancer while running a business. And I started to connect the dots with, all these symptoms that I had been experiencing over the past few years that I had not paid attention to enough. I was experiencing things like the fatigue, as I mentioned a little while ago. I was experiencing joint pain. My hair was thinning. I was getting brain fog. I had swelling under my eyes, and you can probably see it from even in this picture. And sometimes my face would be a bit swollen, but I'd struggle to gain weight. All these are symptoms of the hypothyroidism. And my symptoms even got to a point where depression became a key feature. I had clinical depression, and I really struggled. I had an inability to sit or stand for too long because it would be painful. And I had a protruding nodule in my neck. And I noticed it, but I didn't really know what it was. And I didn't think anything of it. I was just so focused on work and getting on with work and living life, serving my clients, thinking about what they were going through. I really did not think enough about myself. And so you might be thinking, okay, well, there you go. Being employed gives me sick leave so I can take time off sick when I want to. Well, yeah, that's true, but you also have it hanging over your head that at some point you have got to return because you've got a window of time for sick leave. Even if you receive up to a year, 2 years, there is only so long a local authority will keep your position open. And with how the tide has changed now, you may or may not get that length of time. The reality is, social workers, we are disposable to an extent, especially if we are agency workers, because there's, the need is so great and the influx of social workers is so great. What I have found is that independence has given me that space that employment would not have. So, the space to decide how, when, and where I want to use my rest time. So, that sick leave, the income that I have allows me to put money aside for times like that. And it allows me to put a greater or larger amount away. It also allows me to choose how long I want to rest, whether that's over a day, a week, or months, even. And it has allowed me to really think carefully about how I want to make my life flexible, how I want my business to show up in my life rather than the other way around. So at that critical time when I was diagnosed, I was really able to use my creativity to make my work fit into my lifestyle, and particularly my lifestyle around health. So I really increased my work-life balance as it pertained to taking care of myself and having my morning and evening routine that was saturated with taking care of me, and then business was in the middle. Yeah. And I was able to choose if I wanted to work that day or not. And so I did not have to compromise the quality of work I was giving to my mentees or my other clients. And they did not get a terrible service. The service was not cut short or compromised in any way, but I also was not depleting myself or pushing myself, which is an amazing balance to have. And so I've really reviewed and amended my business structure as I've gone along, and it's meant that I can be in different locations at different times. I'm able to do work as much as I want on any given day, and the way in which I do it, I've really been able to review. So right now, my creativity is just through the roof. So I'm doing courses like this for you, where I'm able to show up for you and other clients without having to again deplete myself. And it means that my health is a priority. So I'm able to merge my business world with social work by creating luncheons where I'm meeting with my clients at beautiful venues. I'm able to have business meetings abroad, travel abroad for business meetings. I'm collaborating with amazing people like Neil Thompson, and I'm entering rooms such as those in the House of Commons where I can shed light on my movement that I'm creating, and talking about the industry. I'm having fun on the journey. So that picture on the right with my mentees, when we're on a Zoom call, we are having fun while we're learning, and I'm managing my health, and I'm doing all the things necessary that meet my health needs. And so it's a win-win-win all round. Now, I'm also having the space to be flexible, as I said, and it means that I'm able to travel. I've been able to travel to different locations and receive treatment for my cancer in countries where it is way more cost effective, where there is no waiting list. So places like Portugal, Malaysia, Jamaica, Trinidad, Scotland, and I'm there for months at a time. And so I'm having fun experiences on my road to recovery. This would not be possible if I was not independent. Yeah. But I want you to know that this is possible for you as well. So if you are a social worker who is experiencing any of those symptoms that I, just explained or described, or even worse, you might be having suicidal thoughts. You may be misusing alcohol or building up a dependency on alcohol to really get through the night. Once you've come back from work to unwind, you might find that you're drinking more often. You might be experiencing insomnia. You might be experiencing, weight gain that is getting out of control. You might be experiencing a lot of headaches, whatever it might be. I don't want you to ignore those symptoms. I want you to use this time that we have together to really focus and take stock of what you're experiencing, trace why you're feeling those things and experiencing it, and start to take action. Okay. Now, the way we experience social work in the high caseloads and all the problems, all those difficulties and these symptoms, it is not, exclusive to us here in the UK. This is something that is global, and I want us to look at the industry on a global level right now. So I've been doing a bit of research into the number of social workers there are around the globe, and we actually make up as an industry just over 231.5 million social workers who are registered in the world. That is a phenomenal number, and that is a very conservative number actually, because it does not include the Southern Americas and the Caribbean and Africa and Asia. Once we get that number, that number is just going to skyrocket. We're going to be well over 235 million, I imagine. And so have got quite a presence in the world as an industry, and the dedication that we are committing in our life to those, helping those in our communities. And so though of those social workers, we are not alone in what we are experiencing. What I experienced, I am not alone. I know that for a fact from speaking with social workers. And so there are nuances to the way independence is done around the globe. And I want to talk a little bit about that, because I know that there are some countries that focus more on doing the not-for-profit work, so relying heavily on grants, funding, or insurances to make payments so that independents can get paid. And that seems to be a lot of the types of businesses being created by independent social workers in Africa and the Caribbean. But there are also places like America that use more of a medical intervention. So again, they would look at insurance payments, but they focus on providing therapy. So many social workers are licensed to be delivering therapy on some description, and they do that, a lot of social workers. Whereas in the UK and Europe, we rely heavily on reports and assessments and setting up care homes. And it's not that those other countries don't do that too, but it just seems as though there's a dominance in terms of what independent social workers go in to do as to how they earn. And so looking at these different ways in which we are earning around the globe as independents, it's done differently, but there are two things that connect us that is synonymous regardless of the country that you're in, or how you're doing independence, or how you even operate, or how the system in social services operates. There are two things that we are connected with globally as social workers: our dedication to making our life's work to change and improve the lives of others, but also the industry challenges that drive us out of the industry. And that is a key thing for me. And here's the thing, from my own historical experience and from the experience of the hundreds of social workers I've spoken to throughout my career, and not just as within the role that I'm currently in as an independent, but even working in frontline, we experience the same challenges as those around the globe. So feeling unhappy because, you're overworked, sacrificing your social and family life, not having enough resources to draw from so you can support families and individuals in the way that they need it, and that's frustrating. And wanting to continue to work in the industry, but an outdated structure on how to be independent boxes you in. So you try it, you might give it a go, and it lacks the muster and it doesn't live up to your expectations. And so that is just, depletes you. And here's the secret as to why you feel uncertain and stuck and afraid to move forward in independence or even give it a try, even though you're facing ill health, the burnout, the fatigue, the frustration, the inability to sleep well, the fatigue, the anxiety, low morale, and all of those things. It's simple. You are basically disillusioned with the industry, and that has led you to settle. So, this disillusion has been underpinned by all the disappointment you have experienced within the industry as far back as you doing the course to become qualified. And when you left and you got into the real world of social work, you quickly realized, this is not what I thought it was going to be, all the way to present day, where you may have tried your hand at becoming independent and it hasn't worked, or you've seen other people try it and it hasn't quite worked, or they still seem to be working far more hours than they are just working for the local authority. What's the point, right? So all of those things you have internalized. It's given you a lack of confidence, not just in the industry, but in yourself, because you also on the job experience having to catch up with work, always feeling like you're behind, all that you do is never enough. You feel you want to do more, but your hands are tied, so you can't help families. You internalize all of that, and you start believing what you're told, that even if you tried to be independent, there's one way to do it. And you know that that doesn't quite fit with how you want to do it, but what else can you do because you don't see another option? You can't imagine that there's a real solution that bridges the gap from your reality to what you'd actually like your life in Korea to be like. And so you just take the safe option and you return to local authority work, or you stay in local authority work. Even if you do some bits on the side and call yourself an independent social worker, you know that you're not actually fully independent because you still are on a job where you're being told how, what, when, why, and where. And so all of these things are really causing you to remain stuck. And as a social worker who's trying to move forward into independence, if you're unable to articulate what independence would even look like for you, then that's also going to be an added struggle. But here are the emotions that you go through that kind of make your creativity stagnant. You are, again, making up part of a global entity around, within the industry. And we go through different emotions wherever we are in the globe because we experience the same things. And so some of these emotions you might experience daily, or it might be weekly. You might be on kind of a revolving door with some of these emotions. So if we look at the images here in front of us, going from left to right and then right to left, I have named some of these emotions to give you an idea and to help you think about where you might be sitting. The first image that we see is of this woman who looks unmotivated and a bit resentful, really can't face another day. And this may be you, where you just at this place where going to work is a drudgery. You don't look forward to it. You can't really face the day, but you are having to rely on external factors to keep you going. So tea, coffee, alcohol, maybe other things that you might be involved in, whether they're illicit or not, to just keep your head above water. And there's no shame here. This is a no judgment zone, but I want you to get real about where you are so that you can think about how you're going to move forward. You may be somebody who's anxious, where you are time pressured and you're always running, trying to catch your tail, and you feel like it's never enough, and you feel swamped by the amount of work that you've got to do, and you can't see how you're going to do it, and it raises your anxieties and your feeling of helplessness, but you just stick with it and you keep going. You just suppress those feelings. You may be feeling weary or fed up and trying to stay focused. You want a break, but you feel you can't stop because the pressure and the demands are there, and it's just going to pile up more and more, and it's going to make it worse. So you just suffer in silence, and you may or may not talk to others that are outside of the social worker industry about it. And that kind of leads to you feeling isolated, but you continue anyway. You may be somebody who's actually in a place where you're content and confident and calm. You're feeling on top of everything most of the time, and you feel very organized. And even though things are going on around you, you're feeling okay with it. You don't mind, you accept that this is how the job is, and you don't feel any health problems, you don't feel any mental or emotional difficulties, and you just like go with the flow and you're okay with it. You may have gone through a season where you did feel unmotivated, anxious, weary, fed up, maybe even that week, but today you're feeling kind of okay. And that's kind of a cycle that you go through. You might be in a stage where you are exhausted and completely burnt out, feeling physically and emotionally tired. But again, you keep pushing. You might even be apathetic about the job at this point and saying that this is just how it is. And even though you feel burnt out and dissatisfied with your work, you're ignoring the recurring symptoms like headaches or mild panic attacks, insomnia, and an increased dependency on smoking or drinking coffee to get through the day. Whatever it is, you might just be feeling exhausted. And then finally, you're at the end of your tether where you are just feeling spent physically, emotionally, and mentally, and you are ready to exit the industry. You want nothing to do with it. Down in your heart, you would really like to be able to use your skills and experience, but you're kind of like, I can't do this anymore. And you don't know where to begin. You're confused about what you should even be doing if you become independent, or you've got lots of ideas. And you've just fallen out of love with the work, and you struggle to relax outside of work even. But you feel stuck between a rock and a hard place. So what can you do but just keep going through this cycle of emotion? If you are in any of these stages, I want you right now to take a note of it. I want you to take stock of what's happening in your life and pay attention to that. So, unlike me, where I ignored it, I don't want you to do that. I want you to be cognizant of what's going on and allow yourself, give yourself permission to recognize it and be willing to deal with it. This is so important because, as I said, this is part of what connects us as a community around the globe in social work. It doesn't matter where we are in the world, we're experiencing the same things, the same issues within the industry. And I'm going to give you some insights into just how prevalent these issues have been for social workers. More than 40 years ago, there was some research done, and the Oxford Academic Health and Social Work Journal in 1991 actually published some information about job satisfaction, burnout, and turnover in health and social care workers. And what they found was that between 1979 and 1989, there were significant increases in the proportion of social workers that were employed in private versus public agencies, and there was an increase significantly in their workload and the social workers' perspectives of the challenges presented to them by their job. So we are talking over 40 years ago now. This sounds very similar to what we're experiencing now. And all of these factors emerged as significant predictors of depersonalization and burnout. Now, if you fast forward 20 years later, which was 20 years ago, in the same year, 91, the British Journal of Social Workers, in their journal titled Stresses and Strain Among Social Workers, Demands, Supports, Constraints, and Psychological Health, they actually spoke about research that showed while the social workers found their job satisfying, they perceived the work as very pressured and felt like the pressure adversely affected the service they provided. And the psychological health measures indicated that levels of greater anxiety were particularly high. And most highly stressed workers perceived their job as more demanding and less supportive, and estimated that they took twice as much sick leave. Well, let's fast forward to more recent years. Let's just look at last year. Community Care speaks of social workers' quality of working life declines post-lockdown, and that being work-related. So social workers are more likely to feel burnt out than other social care workers, and they feel prolonged physical and psychological exhaustion. And in the same year, 2002, Unison spoke about social workers being at breaking point with half at risk of quitting, and that they were experiencing unacceptable levels of pressure in the social work teams that will end up costing lives. Now, if we look at what that experience is for Black and minority social workers, in 2021, Community Care actually reported that Black and ethnic minority AYSE social workers had a disproportionately higher failure rate. And if we look at what other think tanks are talking about in terms of the same difficulties faced by social workers who are within the BME community, Rethink Mental Health 2022, Black women more likely to experience depression, anxiety disorder, South Asian women are higher risk of suicide, and Black men more likely to experience psychosis and defined under the Mental Health Act. And when we look at what the Mental Health Foundation reported last year about people from the BAME community being more likely to experience poverty, homelessness, unemployment, and facing challenges accessing services, that does raise concern for us, even as social workers, because we are human beings and we can experience anything that even our clients experience. So we can see that the British Association of Social Workers, they continue to campaign for improved social work recruitment and retention initiatives and improved working conditions for social workers, as well as the removal of red tape in favour of more relationship-based practice. We can see here that the prognosis for our future is not necessarily good. The reason why I say that is because this campaigning for these things have been going on for decades. That's what we've seen. The issues have been there for decades and it is not getting any better. What we've seen is post-COVID, it is actually worse. And so again, I'm inviting you to think about, where do you sit honestly on this emotion scale? Where do you spend 70% or more of your time feeling? Which emotion? And which emotion do you spend 10% or less in feeling? And just ask yourself this and be honest. Write it down, email it to me, tell me, because I want to engage in conversation. I want to learn more about what my peers are still experiencing on the front line, especially post-COVID. And I want you to ask yourself, is this healthy? Is this what you signed up for as a social worker? The beautiful thing about independent social work is that you can continue to contribute to the industry without experiencing the turmoil. Independent social work is really a win-win-win. And what I mean by that is you win because you get to continue doing what you love, what you've invested years, money, time, your expertise that you've built up, your experience. And you can channel that into something amazing, something creative that the clients can then win, because they get to access a service on their terms, the way they choose, when they choose, rather than it being something being done to them. They can have the autonomy to make a decision and to choose to want to work with a social worker who is independent, who they can genuinely trust, because they don't trust the system in reality. And the local authority wins because they have a service that they can commission to work with their clients that will actually hit the nail on the head, rather than experience these revolving door syndromes where clients are getting the bare minimum because the service and access isn't really there because of the funding that is set up within the government. It's sparse, and so they don't get the best outcomes for their clients. And so they also get relief. The social workers, that are working in teams are getting a relief because they can, commission the service out, and the family can get work done with them for the longevity, the time that they need, in a way that really speaks to them. So that is kind of why you are here, I guess, to explore independence. What does that look like? Well, before you go running off into the sunset to start your own independent social work business, I want to share with you where most social workers are going wrong when they make an attempt to go independent or actually become independent. And this really leads them to confusion. It leads them to experience disappointment. It leads them to be working far harder than they were when they were in the local authority. And it just builds up new fear, additional fear that this isn't the right decision, this doesn't really work. And so they either stay put with the local authority, where they're doing this halfway house of some independence on the side and working for the local authority, or if they are already fully independent, they'll go back to working for the local authority. And if they're working for the local authority, they just won't move into independence. The main thing is that we do not want social workers leaving the industry altogether. Whether you stay, you do the halfway house, or you go independent and it's just not working in any of those areas, social workers will leave. And we're seeing that being reported. Social workers are leaving in their droves. And it's so important that the industry retains experienced, enthusiastic workers who are great at what they do, but just need a bit of a shift. So let's talk about some of the dangers that social workers do not understand how to address and resolve before, during, or even after they've become independent. And that has an impact on them also leaving the industry altogether. And more importantly, they forfeit their desires for their career and their lifestyle. So it doesn't matter if they struggle with only one of those danger areas. All four are pillars that keep the structure up and solid. So they have to be able to understand how all four work together and separately. So having a full understanding of the risks associated with the business that has been set up and what that looks like in real terms will empower you to set up a business that will give you the freedom you're looking for. Understanding who you serve and why they need to be served in a particular way will help you create services that will not exhaust you, but will give your clients the maximum value. And having a simple but logical business structure to serve your clients will give you the flexibility you want to be where you want, when you want, without having any ties. And knowing the true cost and knowing how to price your services correctly will allow you a healthy income that does not make you have to do long hours in order to obtain it. So you can see how these dangers relate to your desires for freedom, health, flexibility, and income. Now, if you're going to avoid having a heavy workload, feeling unmotivated and stressed, experience a decline in confidence because things aren't working out, or feeling dissatisfied with your work, and even symptoms, physical symptoms of things like, insomnia, fatigue, if you're going to avoid those things in favor of freedom to do social work the way you want, creatively and on your terms, within the practice standards, and giving greater value to clients who want to actually work with you, in favor of your health, which is having real work-life balance, having a business that does not stress you out or make you feel undervalued or de-skilled, having the flexibility to enjoy life in locations that do not stop you serving your clients, and having an income that allows you to take care of your health, make investments in your hobbies, and to be able to give from an overflow. If you're going to experience those things, you're going to have to do things very different to what you know about how independent social work is currently being done. Now, in my view, conventional independence within the social work industry around the globe needs revolutionizing. It might work for some, and in some ways, such as, income or freedom is achieved, but it tends to be quite limited still, and usually years after grinding. But there is a way that allows you to achieve it without the heavy grinding work for years on end. So I'm going to give you some case study examples of how the four dangers might play out as you try to create your independent social work business. And we're going to stack them up against the four desires I know that you have for your career and your life. And I want to do that so that you do not make the same mistakes that other social workers have, but actually you increase the chances of your success in becoming fully independent and actually leaving the local authority for good. Now, these case examples are based on real people that I've worked with or am working with, and I mentored them in some form or had consultation with them or something. Okay, so these are real examples. Now, these examples in front of you right here are like the classic. The residential unit for 16 plus is like a bricks and mortar business, okay? And if you're being creative, you might even think of something like a cafe for young people at risk of child sexual exploitation. Well, again, bricks and mortar business. And even though it's a cafe and it's a little more creative, reality is that they're still going to come up with the same issues that a residential unit will come up with. So when I went through this with my mentees, by the time we looked at their desires against the dangers rather than the other way around, which is what we're currently doing, they were able to see that it was not going to work at all. So if you're actually thinking of setting up a bricks and mortar type business, whether it's a cafe or something like a standard residential unit, here are the things that I want you to consider. Here's how the four dangers will likely play out. The costings to set up and keep it running are crazy. The deposit for the building, for you to be truly independent, carries its own risk. Money to decorate the building and get it compliant, such as safety fixtures, doors, the boiler, security cameras or a person. And, even if you're calling in favors to get those things done, it is costly. Maintaining the property for leaks, damages, damp treatment, breakdowns in the boiler, renovation and decorating, and the cosmetic keep up of the building is a lot. Having the responsibility of paying staff, national insurance, pension, all those things, and not being able to necessarily get good quality staff and reliable staff, that is usually quite a task in terms of recruitment. Getting the staff, retaining them is always an issue in those kind of places. So your costing is problematic. And then the risk, if there's another pandemic, you're guaranteed to have a greater issue with staffing, and other logistics will cause headache to resolve. And you'll always have the responsibility of having someone to manage, including dealing with performance issues, training them so that they implement your vision and do it the way you desire it to be done. And ultimately, you always been responsible if your staff go off sick or if they're underperforming or steal from you or the clients or leave, whatever it is, the buck always stops with you. You have got to be there waiting in the wings to step in physically. When we look at structure, you're always on call. Yeah, when you're the owner, regardless of having a manager, the more staff you have, the greater the responsibility, and you're working long hours behind the scenes and oftentimes in the front line to get things where they need to be. And so balancing that while you're working in local authority full time is just a recipe for disaster. As we look at the niche element, the market is saturated with residential units, okay? And so for one that specializes, it's going to be important that you are really specialist and that you're getting real results that are reliable and obtainable, and that you can deal with high risk cases, because those are the ones that are far and few between and that local authorities are actually looking for. So you're competing in an area of the industry that is overly saturated, so therefore the risks are higher, and so your outlay financially and otherwise and practically are great. Now, this type of social work business is stressful because you are dealing with crisis after crisis and you're dealing with gatekeeping. The rewards may well be good in terms of seeing the young people safer and getting the help that they need, and even from a financial point of view. But in terms of your desires, money might be good, but most social workers who go into this type of business cannot afford to give themselves a salary, even when they're getting six figures. And that is because the outlay is so heavy and the maintenance is so heavy. So you've got to weigh up whether that's worth it to do. And if you are still having to work in local authority, like most of them are, because they can't afford to pay themselves, then you are doing two jobs essentially. And once you've started it and set it up, it's very difficult to then just walk away, because you've got real people that really need the service who are receiving a service. And so to cut that short would be difficult for them and problematic. So you've really got to think carefully. In terms of flexibility, you might be able to go on a well-deserved holiday, but it's likely to be cut short if something happens where you have got to come back to the location, and you can't go to a location on holiday that is too far, because you need to be able to get back in an emergency, because the reality is your business deals with risk and crisis, and usually high risk. And so you are going to need to be flexible with your level of flexibility. So that then impacts your freedom, because you're working long hours. You can't do what you want, when you want, or how you want. And so when you're in the local authority and you're working also with them to have your own salary, that is just not sustainable, because it then impacts your health. And at some point, your body will give way, and that will then impact your money anyway to a greater extent, and your freedom and flexibility. So it's kind of like a conveyor belt of problems. Now, let's look at another case study. Again, these are based on real examples of mentees I'm working with or have worked with. So this is your really typical service-based business. And again, you may be thinking about going into independence and doing a cocktail of this service-based and bricks and mortar. But the service-based is usually around reports, assessments, and if you're being creative, running programs. Okay, so again, if you're thinking about this type of independent social work business, then here's how the four dangers will likely play out. Right, we're going to look at, again, pricing. Usually pricing is done very poorly. I'm going to say that right out the gate. In fact, it's not done properly at all. And so charging way too little for your services because you have no clue what it costs to actually provide the service in terms of your time, product investment, creating the product or the service. How to work it all out is usually a struggle for social workers, and that then leads social workers to deliver multiple services such as reports and assessments of different kinds rather than specializing. And they may even go as far as to add on additional bonus services like interpreting or translating, and they have not considered, again, the time or the costings associated with whether that's about travel, writing additional reports, preparing for the visits that they may have to do to complete those assessments and reports. Those are the things that I'm seeing. And so that leads to social workers becoming very scared that if they were to actually run the numbers, they'll think to themselves, no one will actually pay me that. And they don't understand how to show the value in an invoice or in a contract. So they don't really know what they're doing. And so they end up undercharging and undervaluing themselves and undercutting even other social workers without knowing, within the independence arena of the industry. So not knowing what you're doing can lead you to be exploited or kind of having to work with local authorities in a way that does not benefit you. And so you run a real risk of not being able to have a sustainable business because you just can't afford to do it. It's cheap labor. They are getting very cheap labor from you. And so while you may feel as though that you're okay with that because you're getting some level of flexibility, the reality is you are doing yourself and the industry a disservice. Yeah. So you end up selling your personal experience, your knowledge, your expertise for cheap, or worse, for free. And so we need to really address that. So again, as we look at risk, you end up having multiple reports and assessments on the go at any given time. And that really makes it a struggle for you to have time to do anything else for yourself. There's no real work-life balance because you are running around doing visits, speaking to professionals, sitting down for hours on end, trying to get these things written up that have got competing deadlines. And so you're running a greater risk of burnout, which is no different to you working in the local authority. So it's really little independence in the real sense of the word, because you still have to bend over backwards. You still have to be dictated to as to when you provide something, produce something, how it's done. There isn't much autonomy sometimes when you're working with local authorities. You may have a little more if you're working with solicitors, but again, you're still meeting deadlines using their methodologies that may or may not be fully aligned with how you want to work, or even the timescales don't align with your personal life. You still get caught up in the bureaucracy associated with working, in the court arena, doing assessments and reports. And so, not being able to create something in the way you see fit can be problematic. As it pertains to programs, you may create something for a local authority that you're working for, but here's the problem where social workers think they can then go off and do it as an independent. It's not your intellectual property. You don't own it. So when you've created it for a local authority and you've done it for them and for them to use, they usually put their logo all over it, even though it's your work. and they go and can sell it as a license to other local authorities. Meanwhile, it's your work, right? Even if they have given a partial contribution, oftentimes it's your brains, your experience, your hard work of pulling it all together and creating it and delivering it and training others within the department or the borough. And it no longer is your IP. So you cannot go off independently and do it. So you can't make a business of it, essentially. So in terms of structure, again, bureaucracy comes into play. And if you have to deal with complaints as a result of your assessments and reports, you've got to bear in mind that as an independent, you are usually a one-man band. You do not have a HR structure, procurement, legal team, an actual senior management team that can help or deal with those things so you can get on with work. No, you've got to deal with the stress of having complaints or still dealing with problematic clients or even professionals while you are conducting other business and not devaluing the service that you actually give to them as you deal with the stress. So you will undoubtedly work longer hours between all these different competing timescales and where you are being pulled left, right, and center, prep time for your visits, travel time, talking with professionals, dealing with the complaints, all those different things. So you've got to consider that in terms of your structure. The other thing to consider is that assessment and report work is usually very mundane. Social workers that I've spoken to with, that's the structure that they have chosen, or the business idea, should I say, that they've chosen. They get bored and they want something different. There's only so many assessments that you can do. You may enjoy and love working with the clients, but that's different to saying that you love doing assessments day in and day out, okay? So you end up getting stuck. Now let's talk about niche, your specialism. Again, the market is saturated with report writers. They are a dime a dozen. And the reality is people are fed up of being assessed. What people need are real services that meet their need, move them over a finish line so they no longer have to be assessed or engage in local authority, or can actually have the autonomy to recognize a difficulty that they have and they want to engage. Assessments don't do that. Assessments are always part of the crisis plan, or leads up to that. So you've got to think about that in terms of, again, specialism and what's going to make you stand out. You want to have a specialism and have a niche that allows you to become the go-to person in a particular area. And even with reports and assessments, again, specialisms can be a dime a dozen. So in terms of your desires, as it pertains to this type of structure, it's the income is so little and it's not viable for you to do this full time, because you're not really going to have any real flexibility at all. You're going to be working like a pay train. You're going to be working just as much, if not more, than when you were in local authority. So you don't have the flexibility that you're actually looking for, or the income. And you might feel, okay, well, it's a bit of a trade-off that I can choose to take a lump of weeks or months out of the year, and that's a trademark. But hey, you're burning the candle at both ends, and then you're collapsing to relax, and then you go and do it again. That is not a healthy way to live. You want to have work-life balance throughout every single day. Sometimes you are going to have a little busy period, but it's a rarity and it's an exception as opposed to the rule. And when you are coming from a place where it has been the rule, it is really important that you have a strict boundary of helping yourself get into a work-life balance that is healthy, so you can have the freedom. Your freedom is taken away when you do not have flexibility. And so these longer hours that you're working and having the time to fulfill means that your health is going to be impacted, because again, at some point your body will give way. Running a business and working in the local authority, you know how you feel already working in the local authority. So imagine doing both, or going into a state of independence where you're working just as hard and it's just as stressful. Even if the stress is slightly toned down, the fact is your body needs time to recuperate. Your mind needs time to recuperate. So, okay, we've looked at the types of business structures that social workers predominantly go into. And you too may have been thinking about setting up or doing one or more of these things. But you've also seen now how the dangers are too great to overcome if you're really going to have freedom to do social work the way you want to, creatively on your own terms, and have real work-life balance, and have a business that does not stress you out or make you feel undervalued or de-skilled, that allows you to be in whatever location you want without your clients having to not get a service. You can still serve them wherever you are, and ensuring that you have money that can actually come in, at the pace and the amount that you want, without your health being compromised or without you having to work, mad hours to be able to get that. So I'm hoping that now you're thinking, okay, well, how do I actually set up my social work business then independently? Well, I am going to show you how it's possible. I've done it myself. And as I've said, I've now been fully independent for 8 years. Okay, so I'm going to show you that it's possible, and I'm going to show you my blueprint. And I want you to remember that when I say independent, fully independent, no tendering, no grants, no working with the local authority, all of those things. I've never done any of that to be able to have the income that I want, the flexibility, the freedom. And yet I've been asked to speak at conferences to students around the globe. I've been on podcasts and I write in business magazines because I have learned how to get my clients results through understanding their needs and their issues on a very deep level. I know how to market myself authentically, both on and offline. I know how to create and utilize different systems and tools that allow me to deliver to my clients a stellar service without exhausting myself. And I have really been able to, I've developed my value and understanding my value and how to unapologetically price my value without compromising my clients getting their value that they deserve. And I've been able to do that and replace my income that I got paid as a high paid working agency worker in the local authority, and manage my health. So being able to create different income streams that all relate to my business so I don't burn myself out has given me the ability to maximize my value to my clients as well. So gaining all of this knowledge and skills has given me a better understanding of how it all fits together, the business world fits together in the social work industry. So I've been able then to continue being an independent social worker and pivot to start helping social workers like you do what I'm doing. So I want to explain my blueprint to you. Now, this is a good time to pause and top up your glass of water, stretch, because we've done a bit of a marathon already. So we've got just a little bit more to go now. It is a bit of a journey, isn't it? But this is a great journey, and I hope that this is exciting for you, and I hope you're getting a lot out of it and that you've had some mindset shifts already. Okay, let's continue. So my blueprint involves 5 signature strategies that I have really cultivated and put together as the years have gone by. And I really had to sit and think, because I was being asked by my peers and my friends, how are you doing it? Because I was seeing them struggling with things that I was not struggling with anymore in business. And, some of them had been doing it or trying their hand at it for just as long as me, if not longer. So I had to sit down and figure out, what are these things that I've been doing? And I realized that there were methodologies and strategies that I was using. The overarching is the S&A methodology, which is strategy and take action. I'm big on action taking, and the sub strategies with the actions include purposeful planning, so goal planning journal, the CTB manifesto, the Pulse framework, the CEOL formula. And this purposeful planning business and process, they really fit together. So if you are missing one of them, similar to when we looked at the 4 dangers, you're missing all of it, because it will not stack up, it will not work. All right, your business will not adequately meet your expectations, and it will fall apart at some point. You'll experience a deficit. So you will need to return to work, probably, even if you're only supplementing, doing this business on the side. That may be how you have to keep it, because being able to be fully independent is really where we're trying to get you, isn't it? And that's what's important. So it's important to understand how these all fit together. So I'm going to explain that for you. So the Pulse framework is really about purpose to profit. Okay, looking at your passions, your qualities, your skills, your expertise, because it runs through the veins of your business and it manifests in your personality, in your action, the way you do business, the way you show up. So having a very clear and deep understanding of what you have to offer, your value proposition, and how you piece that together succinctly, and how you can decide on what you are going to be moving forward doing, is where the Pulse framework comes in. And then we look at the goal planning journal, which is really about planning your life with structure and realistic goals. So you learn how to habitually strategize, reflect, take action, and repeat. Yeah. And that then leads you to the CTB manifesto, which is really looking at your client transformation blueprint. It gives you the maximum value to your client with little effort from you, as little as possible, and I don't say that to say it doesn't take any effort at all. It does. It's work, it's business, but you are not going to be working half as hard as you are currently. And then the CEOL formula is about the process of how you get to be the chief executive officer in your life. So we want to move you to that status so that you are in leadership, so that you actually take ownership, accountability, you're confident, you know your value, your worth, your skill, and you know how to apply it to business. So let's take a look at how these work in a case study formula. I'm going to show you some of my clients, just 4 of them, that will help you to gain an understanding of how these systems, manifesto, the methodology, it works in real life when you are setting up an independent social work business that is sustainable and that will meet all your desires. And remember, these are things that I am actually using. I'm actually using these frameworks, methodology. I use them still, and this is why I'm teaching them to those that I work with. So we're going to look at each strategy and how each of my mentees that we're going to be looking at have used or utilized the strategy. Okay, so you understand what it looks like in real terms. Now, let's talk about Phil. Phil had never heard of independent social work before. He didn't know what that was. He didn't know what the term was, but is multi-passionate, has more than 30 years experience in a variety of industries, from project management, social work, TV and film. But he was moving into a space where he was caring for his parents who were older. He was highly stressed and wanted a way out. He was single, so he became a workaholic and is very detailed in his approach. So he's one of those, when he writes an assessment, right, every T is crossed, every I is dotted, and every full stop is circled, right? But he was very uncertain. He was nervous. He didn't have confidence in his abilities. His mind was awash with all these different ideas of things he wanted to do, but he had never heard of independent social work. And so how we were able to really maximize the Pulse framework for him is where we helped him to understand his passions, his qualities, skills, and his expertise. And we were able to really look through that with a fine-tooth comb, and using the framework that I put together, he realized his potential to get out there and do all these different things, but in a structured way. He was able to use all the years of experience and pull them together in whatever industry. So that boosted his confidence massively, and the nerves did not stop him from moving forward. So he got into a very untapped market, and he's doing something that's not been seen. That's what he's working towards in terms of using TV and film to be able to bridge the gap between the voice of clients and social workers. He's doing adverts and marketing for local authorities also, because of his skills with editing and TV. So he's getting to combine his passions as a social worker and being in TV and film and put something together. So it is super exciting what he's actually creating and the market he's going into. And that is because we use the Pulse framework to help him get a structured vision of all his passions and his skills and how he can use them coherently in a way that's not going to burn him out, but allow him the flexibility and creativity to do what he does best. So now let's look at the CTB manifesto, and that is the client transformation blueprint, okay? And Bianca is somebody who had actually started a business before. She had a baking business, or has a baking business, but she did not use the correct business structure, and she was wanted to go forward in independence and was wary about how she should set up and what she should do, because she was having struggles in her current business, in her existing business. So she didn't really know either what to do for the social work business. She had some ideas, but between the existing business and working the local authority, her time was taken up, and she did not understand how she could merge the two. She didn't think of merging the two or streamlining it, and she wanted to do it all basically. So through going through the CTB, we were able to combine those two businesses and help her to actually focus on client satisfaction. And so the business part of strategies and taking action, allowed her to really hone in on working less hours. That was her success, being able to give a 5-star client experience. And she was getting paid before she even launched or finished creating the business that we put together. So she settled on working with social workers, in particular newly qualified, but especially like other social workers, but her niche was newly qualified. And what she's creating is something that has not been done before for social workers and the way it's been done. So she was able to develop business acumen. She was able to create a structure and creativity that merged her business in baking with social work. And she's mastered how to give the maximum value to her clients with very little effort from herself. And she's looked at the different income streams within that niche. And by utilizing just one of them, she was earning before she's even launched the business. And so the model is allowing her to shed 30 hours of work a week, in favor of doing as little as 10 or so hours a week. So when she's fully independent, that is what she's going to be enjoying, and she's well on her way. So then let's meet Sarah now, where we use the goal planning journal for her. She was somebody, amazing businesswoman, has a business and had a structure that was not serving her. She had created a bricks and mortar business actually, and she was working more than 90 hours a week, combining the business as well as working full time. She struggled with having time for her hubby and her children and for herself, and her health was being impacted even more. She was very stressed, not sleeping much, and having interrupted sleep. She was fatigued. And so using the goal planner and journal, we were able to really maximize how she was planning her life in a structured and realistic way, and consistently understanding how to utilize strategies, how to take action, how to reflect, but condense her time into slots so that she was not overwhelming herself. We also looked at how to revamp her business completely. So this was her success, one of her many successes in revamping and having a roadmap of how to revamp her business so that she was moving from 90 hours to 10 to 15 hours a week. And so using proper goal planning, reviewing it and hitting those small targets to get to the big ones was where it really unlocked for her. And so the power of remodeling to free up her time and continuing to get more money, and the ability to delegate to staff and understanding how to do that in an automated way was allowing her to have the freedom that she wants and needs, especially because she then became pregnant and had a lovely new baby. So that has been her experience, and I've done a case study video with her, so you could actually go and take a look at that. So finally, let's meet Nosenli. Nosenli is a social worker who actually came from Africa and had to learn to get to know the country and do that whole transition by herself. She was experiencing health issues because she was just struggling for a long time under the pressure of social work, and she was struggling with understanding how to move forward. She knew she wanted to do something different, but she just did not know how. She did not have the time, and she was just burnt out. So we used the CEOL formula for her. That really maximized her understand the process of how to get there so that she can be the CEO of her own life, both in her career but also in her personal life. So she was really able to nail the utilizing of the structure and organization to very quickly build an infrastructure in her business that she was able to implement immediately, and that allowed her to keep going with her work-life balance, but also showing up for clients while she was working full-time, and she began getting paid. So before her official launch, both her and Bianca were getting these results. Now, the blueprint clearly works because it's worked for me, it's working for these people, and I know it can work for you too. Just look at these results that Nosenle has got. Somebody trying to come from Africa to the UK, is saying that they were ready to give up. But because Nosenle gave them feedback, helped them, motivated, they're now fully registered with the Social Work England here, and they are encouraged to continue. Another person said that they were surprised that they even got a response because she runs her business so professionally, that it may be that the person thought that she was a bit unapproachable, but instead she was so personable. The customer service was at the forefront, and so they experienced a detailed consultation, and they now got clarity on which direction to go with, and so they were able to move forward. Another person had not one but two consultations, and they said the value was worth $1 million because they appreciated the sincerity in the business. And so this is the kind of thing that I teach in terms of the manifesto, the framework, the structure, all of these things. It is geared towards customer service, is geared towards you getting the result that you want for yourself as a social worker and giving the maximum value to your clients. So I'm so excited for them, and I want to be excited for you too. So it's your turn. You've seen the results that Phil, Bianca, Sarah, and Nosenle have had, and there are more. You've seen the results that I've had, and it's your turn to get the results you want. So I want you to look at this list, and I want you to make a note of the results that are here, and just list down the ones that pertain to you, the ones that resonate with you. And there might even be some on this list that are not there, but I want this to be something you can use as a springboard to maybe add more of your own. All right. So you may need to pause it at this point to do that exercise. And I want you to email me 3 things that you want, 3 results that you are looking for. Okay. Email me. I'm going to be looking out. I know whether you've taken this course because it tells me in the back end of my site. And so I'm going to be looking for you to come back to me and tell me these things. So remember what the first one was. I want you to tell me what emotions you have been experiencing and for how long you've been experiencing it for. And then I want you to also tell me what results you are looking for. 3 of them. Okay. So now you get to choose how your career and life goes from this point forward. You are in control, all right? You get to make the decision, but make the decision that's right for you, all right? So remember I told you earlier that I was in your shoes at one point, but now I've had the opportunity to experience doing social work in a very different way, and it's changed my life literally, right? And it was hard to learn all the things that I've learned. It was a very steep learning curve over the first 5-6 years of my business, but it is now allowing me to manage my health. It has allowed me to manage my health and to help other social workers have flexibility, freedom, income, and the good health that you deserve. So if you recall, I help social workers just like you because I believe you deserve to have access to resources you need so that you can live a purposeful life, and that's personally or professionally, whether that's your career development, having support, improving your finances, and so that you can feel fulfilled as you're helping others. You are giving your life and dedicating your life to social work, which is all about helping others and improving the lives of others. But you have to have an improved life as well. So your health, your dignity, and your family life should not be compromised. I really believe that. And I believe that my personal blueprint, you know, is part of the movement that will help you finally step out into full independence and get it right so that you can actually keep going. So there are two different ways that we can work together. There are two options. One way is for you to figure it out by yourself. And the pros of doing that is that you could do it at your own pace, and there's lots of free information out there. But the con is that you will not know which information will actually work for you in this industry and for your specific situation. So you might have to go through a lot of trial and error, and that's going to be costly, not just in terms of money, but in terms of time. And time is often what we don't have when we're in a state of frustration, stress, or ill health. And the other con is that there's no accountability for you. So you'll probably be here in the same place this time next year saying the same thing, that you want something different, but you don't know how, because you wouldn't have likely started. And even if you did, you wouldn't have got very far at all. Yeah. Now, the other option is to do it with support and with a blueprint. And the pros to that is that you will have support and a guide to show you the specific steps for your situation, and it will save you bags of time and money. Where it has taken me 5 or 6 years, you can do it in as little as 4 months. Gain all the knowledge you need and be implementing it so that within another 4 months, 8 months to a year total, you could be fully independent, and you can collapse that time even more depending on how eager and hungry you are. The support is there. I am here to help you with that. The con of doing it with support and a blueprint is that you will be challenged. Yeah, you will have to step out of your comfort zone and level up. Yeah. And I do that in a very gentle way. And you'll hear that from my mentees, that will tell you that I do keep them accountable, but it has helped them no end, and it has made them eager and hungry for it even more. So you know that I'm big on rewarding people that take action and that people are committed. So I'm going to give you the ability to work with me on a one-to-one for up to 5 months, okay? But this ultimate bootcamp experience comes with other bonuses, and you will get those if you take action within the next 24 hours from you seeing this webinar, all right? And so I want to tell you a little bit about what that includes. First and foremost, you will get consultations from me. We're going to do 3 consecutive consultations where we are going to be utilizing some of the strategies that I've just shared with you so that we can move you and propel you forward, looking at your wealth, looking at your goals, looking at your strategy for business, from how you set up legally to pricing and all of those things. And then it will also include you looking at webinars of the boot camps that I have done. So a 5-day boot camp, a 1-day boot camp, and you're going to get a goal planner and journal. You're going to get templates, a guide, and a workbook that goes along with this. And it will also include an hour a month over 4 months where I'm keeping you accountable based on the actions that you are going to be taking from all of the work that we have done together and what you have done from looking at the webinars. And so this mentoring is there isn't anything else like it out there. And this is the option for you to get in at the earliest and the most cost effective. And I'm going to give this to you on in a way that is very accessible. And I'm going to give you bonuses that go with it if you make a decision to work with me and have the support and the blueprint on your journey. So whether or not you pay in full or you spread the cost, you're going to get the full mentoring service. But if you pay in full, I'm also going to give you the Let's Do Business Masterclass that I did last year, and that was in November 2022, because I don't know when you're currently looking at this video or this course. And so part of this Let's Do Business Masterclass is a big piece of the puzzle in you starting your independence, because in there we're going to go through together the entire blueprint. Okay, and that when you couple that with the boot camps and everything else that comes along with the mentoring service, it sets you the foundation, a very, very strong foundation and a very clear structure. And so the mentoring sessions will help you create the walls and the interior pieces of your business. And the boot camps will help you create the infrastructure and the foundation. So when we put all of these things together, you are going to have an amazing start to becoming independent and actually really doing independence in a way that gives you longevity and sustainability. So all you need to do is go to the website, nicolemlouis.com/the ultimate experience. And once you've enrolled in the program, we will get started immediately. Okay, you just need to check your instructions, your email rather, for instructions. Now, don't forget, I have not forgotten about the bonus I said I will give you. Okay, the first 4 days of the Get Your Mojo Back 10-day challenge is also going to be sent to you because you have got this far. And regardless to how you pay, whether it's in full or spreading the cost, you will get that. I'm also going to gift you my 5 simple steps to independent social work guide, checklist and workbook. So you'll become a launcher, part of the community, so you're not going to be on your own as you do this journey. And from time to time, I'll send you nuggets via email about becoming independent. You'll get discounts and exclusive VIP launcher only content, okay, direct into your inbox. So you literally have 24 hours and your 24 hours starts now. I'm super excited to start working with you. I know that you can do this because I know that you're committed social work. You've been doing this for a long time. And you've also been thinking about doing social work, if you're new to it, for a long time, and you've actually committed to wanting to show up. So I'm excited to work with you. So, launcher in the making, it is time to discover your journey forward and to never look back. Let's get started.